So, Eddie, Nick, and Chris from the King Singers, welcome to having another crafty beer with me. It is obviously 1 minute past 6, and you're all allowed to have your crafty beer. I see, Mr. Bruton, you've got something. What is that?
This is called a Yosemite Pale Ale, and it's from a cool little company in London, and it's just very easy to buy 24 mixed beers in one go, get it delivered to your door.
So your daily deliveries then. That's Nick, what have you got there?
Well, the queue for Sainsbury's was too long, so I couldn't get myself a craft beer for the day, I'm afraid, sorry. But I went for craft gin instead. As you can tell, obviously, classic Fever Tree aromatic tonic and off-here gin. And a cheeky bit of lime in there as well. So it's like quite potent with the flavours. Off-here is really spicy, so tasty.
Other gins and obviously other tonics. Sure. So, and Ed's, good to see a lot of you. What's that?
It's water. I'm really sorry. It's getting worse as we're going through. I'm gluten-free and beer is not gluten-free. Although you can get gluten-free beer now, but it's not the sort of thing I'm prioritising in lockdown.
Eddie, you should sell that water a bit more. That's not just water. That's Leamington Spa's finest tap water.
That is what it's famous for. So anyway, indeed, chaps, thank you so much for joining me and giving us your time on this this extraordinary time where, whilst there's been a lot of tragedy and difficulties across the planet, personally, we all know people who have gone through really tough times, especially freelance musicians, as I know you all are. But the King Singers, you've got a global reputation, and indeed, in some countries, you're actually, you're treated like pop stars, and you've all grown up aware of this extraordinary, iconic group, and now you're in it. And I've been aware of this group since I was 10. I mean, so what's it like to be part of this extraordinary team? So, Ed, I suppose one of the most recent members. What you answer that first?
I mean, it's such a privilege, and I often pinch myself to think that I'm in this group. It is amazing. I'm so grateful for all the opportunities it gives us, like to travel, but actually to learn as well. Like there's so many chances to develop yourself personally in this job, whether it's public speaking, learning to teach, learning new languages, learning about the business side of things as well. And it is such a joy. My colleagues are wonderful, wonderful people, and I have missed them terribly during this time. There is nothing like being in the presence of my colleagues as opposed to being on Zoom. But no, it's just a real honour to be part of the group. I never thought I would manage to get into this group, and I'm just utterly delighted that I'm here and just massively enjoying the journey. Although it's quite strange that I've only been in the group a year, so a year when this crisis started, and so it's been quite weird to have a hiatus for so long in such a short period of time of being in the group.
And actually, Eddie, I've just noticed something incredibly important about the room you're in. And is that your teddy bear in the background there?
Where? Over there?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's his name?
Gandhi. And I don't know why he's called Gandhi, but it's I call my grandpa Gandhi because I got confused between his name Sandy and grandfather when I was younger. So it's become Gandhi, and that is Gandhi Bear. I don't know why, but it is.
That's really good. So, Chris, you've been in the group the longest amongst you, and obviously you grew up the other side of the planet, where equally the group is as famous there as it is here. What does it feel like to be, in the group for so long? I suppose. I mean, one of the most established members.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, I joined the group when David Hurley was still singing and had over a quarter of a century in the group. Paul Phoenix also had done, 17 years. So I feel like my time is pretty insignificant compared to former members. But 8.5 years is still a fair old time of touring. And I was working out the other day that this period of lockdown is very close to approaching the longest I've ever spent with my wife in one go. So it's a bit of a silver lining. But generally, I don't see a whole lot of it. And so, 8 years has flown by. It's pretty crazy.
A really interesting point about these members who have been in 25 years, and equally, when they first joined, there would have been members who were also membered 25 years beforehand or whatever. But actually, this whole thing about this style, the synergy, the way you approach singing, what astonished me when I performed with you is the way you breathed together and that you sensed each other's breath. And the ensemble was exquisite, doesn't even come close to describing the precision within that. I mean, that must just get passed down from generation to generation, just through this sort of sensing it, this osmosis almost. So would that be fair to say?
I think so. And I think also in normal circumstances, when you're working with the same people day in, day out, those things get a chance to develop to a high level, perhaps. I'm sure if you play in a sports team with people on a daily basis, you start developing a sense of where they are on the pitch or whatnot. I'm sure there's a sort of similarity there. And so it is a real, I think it's fortunate that we get the chance to sing so frequently together in normal circumstances, and that does help all these things.
Absolutely. So Nick, obviously another new member, relatively new member with Ed. How's this last? Well, let's forget this year for a bit. We talked about that. How was it last year? You had a huge pile of music to learn, I gather.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We should definitely just brush 2020 under the carpet for now, I think. But last year was quite phenomenal because I think we all know that humans adapt very quickly to new situations. And though to begin with, there was this sort of amazing sort of like hit the ground running with so many concerts. Within the first month, Eddie and I went to all around Europe. We went to Russia. We went over to America to the Grammy Awards, clang, and recorded an album, all in the first month of our time on the job, which is, we're kind of thinking, is every month going to be like this? It was phenomenal. But I mean, your point about the past members and the continuity and stuff is really interesting because the group is obviously, there's only 6 of us. Each of us makes up 1/6 of the group, which is quite a lot. So when you're within the group, you really feel like you're part of the group. You're part of the group vibe. You're part of the overall group personality, and who you are really steers a lot of what the group comes across as and does and looks like and sounds like, because there's only 6 of us. And at the beginning of this rather tedious lockdown period, one of my jobs, which it was useful to have lots of time to do, was to go through all this archive footage that we discovered from VHSs, if you remember what those are. A really amazing German friend of ours has spent hours and hours transferring this stuff onto digital format. And so now we've got this phenomenal archive of footage from right back in the 70s, all these appearances on like Japanese TV and some incredible German TV moments as well. And sort of watching through all of this kind of then did bring home to me this like, actually, wow, this is the group that I'm part of. There's a continual thread passing down, as you say, of this sound and style of singing, which
it's the way you behave on stage. I remember the first time I saw you, it was totally accidental. I was flying with my wife. We were on the seats on the plane behind you, and I didn't know that many of the members of the group at the time, and I sort of recognized a couple of you and said, aren't those the... So we Googled you whilst on a plane and said, yeah, they are. Yeah. I didn't want to, we were on a private thing. I didn't want to intrude on your very intense schedule. And but you had a concert at the Philharmonie, the great, amazing hall there. And we had a fabulous lunch next to Georgebury, beautiful restaurant, fabulous, brilliant wine list. We had 2 bottles there, which is why I didn't introduce myself to you later that day. But what struck me about it was actually your stage presence, the way you really knew how things should look on a stage. And it took me right back to when we did our first concert with Emma Kirkby. I wanted to say to all the young musicians, just watch how she embraces both music and brings the audience into it, just by the way she holds herself on stage. And each one of you did that. I remember after the first piece, you sang If You Love Me, and it was a packed hall. Must have been about 1,000 people there. And the hall went wild, and you all took the applause as if you'd just done a Beethoven piano concerto. But it was the most wonderful thing to see. But actually, it's the way you hold it. It was the most beautiful and graceful thing. But it taught you about stage presence and how important that is. And obviously, this is a time of difference and hiatus, and we've all had to adapt. And I suppose, talking of which, I mean, I know you've been recording all sorts of places. You record at cathedrals and you record at Abbey Road Studio. And Ed, sorry to pick on your room again, but can I just ask you about your recording studio?
So we've had to obviously get used to doing lots of recordings in isolation, which is nothing like being in the King Singer lineup and this amazingly special feeling that brings, when things just, as you said, hopefully our precision comes true and it works. So we've been having to record at home, which of course means there's like dog noise and outside noise and everything. And when we were doing one of our first videos, the wonderful engineer who's been helping us asked us to get as much padding as we possibly could to make the sound as quiet as possible. And this is my attempt at that. So I've got
your duvet.
I've got my duvet. I've got the furriest blanket you can imagine there, and then my iPad in here, which you can hopefully just about see,
Wow.
and then the microphone there. And actually, to be honest, it's quite amazing. You put your head in there, and you can't. My computer makes a little hum when it's on, and you go in there and you can't hear that at all, and you can't hear bird noise outside. And apparently, it's worked very well.
Is that because they're all being killed and they're all wrapped around the inside of your?
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, but everyone has had to adapt. I mean, it is extraordinary, especially the creative industries. I know there's a lot of uproar at the moment about the lack of recognition that, you know, between us, we create £6.5 billion worth of GDP for this country, and yet we don't even seem to be on the radar of Oliver Dowden. I mean, I believe that will change.
You're not just talking about us and the Harmonica consort. You're talking about
yes.
I assume.
A couple of other groups I've included in that.
I think so. Yeah.
But I think when they realise, you know, how extraordinarily creative and adaptive musicians and artists have to be. I think that they should be incredibly proud that we can do that, and what we've achieved, because we've started working with the Alzheimer's Society, and we've repurposed and retrained some of our singers and our professional musicians to at least have work and have some sort of purpose within using their skill set, being musicians. And I think it's something we should all be really, really proud of. But I really hope that Mr. Dowden comes to his senses and gets a grip, because otherwise some really tough stuff is going to happen. So anyway, moving on to sort of more positive side of things. Over the past few years, I know that you've really accelerated your work with community choirs, with children's choirs, all across the planet. And indeed, just last year, you worked with 1,000 of our AC Academy singers in a couple of concerts. And it was, you know, that came with its own challenges. So, but what part does that work what part of that work does the future play? I mean, you paint the picture of where you want that to go over the next few years. I mean, I know, Chris, you did a lot of work for us in helping us prepare for those concerts with you. But the vision you seem to have is extraordinary.
Well, I think it's becoming more and more important for us to think about our legacy. You know, as we got to 50 years, we thought, isn't that cool? But what next? What about the next 50 years? And, you know, none of us want to be the last King singers, and we'd like to see this go on and on far beyond our time in the group. But I think it's also really important to think about how we can give back. And so Nick and I have been spending a lot of time recently developing a lot of our online workshops, because we realize that in these times, the use of the internet is something that is at least a guarantee, and can keep sort of going even if international travel can't. So that we've been thinking about how we tailor what we love to do and how we would like to share those experiences and ideas with people from all walks of life and any age. And it's been really fun putting together a whole bunch of different types of workshops to work with choirs and different organizations all around the world. And we've already started giving a few of these presentations and workshops, and we've got a few lined up in the autumn as well. We've got an exciting project with the San Francisco Girls Choir, where they'd like us to be sort of artists in residence, if you like, and do a series of online workshops with their students and their singers. And then the idea being that in a few years' time, that would build towards a live concert and whatnot. So, you know, similar to what we've done with you guys. But this is the kind of building bridges for that. And so it's really fun.
Oh, no, I remember the first time I saw you working with children at the Sheldonian in Oxford. And you did All of Me with the teenage choir. So they were, 14 to 18. And they turned up, they did their bit. And then you started singing. And then suddenly, all of them changed, not just the way they sang in terms of their musical approach to it, but they changed their posture. They changed that thing I was mentioning about, you know, making sure you talk to every single member of the audience. They were all doing that. They were all emulating precisely what they were doing next year. There was something hugely inspiring about your presence and what you do, and it was so exciting to see that you're going to be making this a regular and present part of your future in every, which is why I suppose we wrote the Toby Young, we co-commissioned it, amazing piece, the suitcase for the songs, where it's something that you can do all over the planet, indeed in potentially different languages, and just welcoming young people, because I think it's very easy for us as professional musicians to forget how inspiring what we do on a day-to-day basis is, because we're so consumed by it. We're so consumed by the process of just getting that job done that actually we forget that as younger people, it's mind-blowing sometimes. So from, I know, Nick, you came from a very, very big educational background as well. So for you to be able to incorporate your skills there and your skills as a singer must be quite exciting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was educated, but no, I did a lot of teaching and before joining the group as well. And it's been a real joy to, I mean, right from up to our like summer school that we hold every year. It's meant to be in Princeton last week, but last year we did it in Cambridge. And that's, you know, really good amateur singers at the top of their game, and that was really exciting to work with them. And then right down to the youngest, Eddie and Pat did a workshop last November with some 4 and 5 year olds, and they had a great time. But one of the amazing things that I think the group, I'm really proud of the group doing, and they set it up before I joined, so I can have there's no smugness about it for me, but I think it's amazing. They set up this King Singers Global Foundation, and using lots of very kind donations that we've raised over the years. Mainly Eddie raising that money incredibly efficiently. We've managed to fund a load of pro bono workshops with predominantly kids choirs across the world who wouldn't be able to afford access to that sort of workshop normally, but have a real powerful love of singing, and it can transform their lives. There was a choir in America that we worked with who were from a tiny town in Texas, and we were doing a gig in Louisiana, and our foundation paid for a coach for them to come all the way over into Louisiana and come to our concert for free and do a workshop with us all afternoon. And it transpired afterwards that all of the kids hadn't left the state before, and half of them hadn't even left their town before. So these were teenagers, and suddenly we're like, just through this foundation we started up, we had given 30 or 40 teenagers this life-changing experience just through travel, let alone the music side of things.
Such a lot. When you realise, when you're working with people like that, it does mean such a lot. And it also makes our enjoyment of the concert we give even more worthwhile. We've created quite a few concerts, a lot with Toby actually, where there's been a children's choir element and a professional choir, an instrumentalist element, that we are absolutely bowled over by how special it is for them, and it makes us enjoy the concert. It raises our level in the concert, and you go home with a bit of a bigger smile on your face than you did when you turned up. So, and in terms of the King Singers plans for the horizon, let's say confidently 2021, we're all going to be back on the stage, on the road again. You've had a lot of time to think about and experiment with all these things going on. What plans have you got? Are you allowed to reveal anything yet to whet our appetites? Eddie, you being the youngest member, you're probably the least discreet, so go for it.
Also know the least about our diary. Well, we've got going on what Nick said with the foundation. We've got some really exciting projects coming up with our Finding Harmony ambassadors. As you're you might know, we've got a project called Finding Harmony at the moment, which is all about how music has the power to bring people together, especially at difficult times. And in addition to the kind of historic element of that, and the kind of all the research we did, which fed into our album Finding Harmony, we wanted to also find harmony now in real time. And so we have Finding Harmony ambassadors, which are 3 organizations that we're working with, that we're giving free workshops to, and we're hoping to create a big performance element together. That was all kind of about to happen, and then lockdown happened, so that's been on pause. But luckily over lockdown we have collaborated with them, and hopefully a couple of our collaborations will be kind of coming out in the coming weeks. But so plans for next year include the work with our Finding Harmony ambassadors. We're hoping to get back touring again as quickly as possible. we've got some really exciting recording projects, Christmas recording, and another one of our library series, which is the EPs that we're releasing that are mostly close harmony repertoire from our library in the past, but also new music that we commission or arrange now. I'm trying to think what else am I missing, you guys?
Where we go for it?
You know, a couple of trips to America, fingers crossed, in Canada. We've got Asia. I mean,
potentially Wuhan. If
we're off to ground zero. Yeah, it's going to be
okay. Yeah. So
really cool.
I know that two of you are very experimental eaters, but can I suggest keep it simple, keep it really simple. But we must draw to a close. But before we do, a little quick fire round, which we've done from everybody from John Rutter all the way through to Roderick Williams and the AC Academy Scholars who you worked with. That was a slightly different affair. But just for each of you now, so we'll take it in turn. So the first question, very, very simple. And this is meant to be totally divisive. Oxford or Cambridge? So Chris, let's start with you.
Be Oxford, doesn't it?
I'm going to lose this. I know I'm going to.
You live there, Chris.
Yeah.
Nick, go on.
Oxford City, because I grew up there. Nothing to do with the university there.
So, and what about you, Eddie?
Cambridge, based on the university. I know nothing about football. That's what you were asking about. I don't know, but I presume university.
I was talking about university, yes. Okay, here's an easier one. Eddie, we already know the answer to this probably. Beer or wine? You go first.
Wine.
Okay, a Bordeaux or a Burgundy or a...
I do really like Bordeaux, Saint-Emilion.
Ooh,
amazing.
Right. Okay, well, I've just found out that you live only about 10 miles from me, so we should be doing some of that fairly short there. So, Nick.
Does gin count?
No.
Oh, okay, fine. Beer, but only Adnams.
Okay, that's very specific. Correct.
Very niche. And for me, this is a very tough one because I adore both, depending on time of day and time of year. Oh, actually,
what about breakfast then?
Yeah, exactly. I think if I was like desert island beer, then I would, or desert island booze, I'd have to go New Zealand Pinot Noir.
Oh, really? Even if you didn't have a sort of a fridge or anything like that?
Yeah,
because red wine cold on a really hot island is actually really nice. You should try it. Don't ask how I know that. Anyway, next one, curry or Chinese? Nick, shall we start with you?
Curry, 100%.
Okay.
Curry over any other cuisine.
Okay. All right, Eddie?
Same, curry.
Okay, and Chris?
Curry, definitely. If you'd said Thai, I would have been swayed, but you said Chinese, so it was definitely curry. Okay,
fair enough. Okay, now here's a really different one. I don't think I know what any of you are going to say to this. Vaughan Williams or Finzi? Start, Chris.
Do you know, that's such a good question. I mean, I loved learning songs of travel, but I think Let Us Garland's Bring is going to take the cake, so we're going to go Finzi.
Okay, I like the thinking there. Eddie, go on.
I'm going Vaughan Williams. I've learnt the songs of travel, and they are utterly wonderful, amongst many other things.
Nick?
I think, given his orchestral writing, especially string writing, it's got to be Vaughan Williams as well. Though Finzi, what's that Christmas one? That amazing Christmas baritone string thing. That is really beautiful as well. But yeah,
I'm not sure I know it.
Oh, it's sensationally beautiful. But I think Vaughan Williams just pipped it to the post. That's close, wasn't it? That's tough.
I think I'm with you on Vaughan Williams actually, but my daughter's been just learning a piece on clarinet by Finzi, and it took me back, the way it's been harmonised, the way it's structured, took me right back to those days when you're singing Lo, the Full Final Sacrifice as a chorus, and you think, actually, that's really good. It's really good. Anyway, final question for you all. Now, Chris, as you're the longest member of the group, I'm going to ask you first because you're probably less worried about being rude. The question is alto or baritone?
Oh, I mean, is that even a question? Obviously baritone.
Okay. Okay, Eddie, go on.
Well, obviously alto.
Obviously, okay, right.
Meaning what voice part we want to be able to sing.
That you think is the finest voice known to man, really? I mean, that's...
Oh, definitely alto.
And finally, Nick.
Well, the question is not alto or baritone. It's the question in our case is alto or baritone and alto, because Brew and I often sing in falsetto. So
yeah, and I often sing in baritone.
and you often sing. The question is alto.
I'm the lowest member of the group.
So basically, you're emulating Take That, because that's precisely what they do. So you and Gary Barlow, just like that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
gentlemen, Eddie, Nick, Chris, thank you so much for sharing a crafty beer at 601. It's been a real joy to talk to you. It's been an even greater joy working with you. And I know we're planning on working with you again in 2022, I think we're talking about. So thank you for your time. I wish you the best of luck with all those amazing projects. You're so inspiring, and keep up the brilliant work. Thank you, chaps.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
All the best. Cheers.